Earth had been a member of the Galactic Confederation for almost 100 years. Yet most alien species still found humans strange and hard to understand. Though humans were behind other races in technology, the Confederation had let them join because they showed great potential to learn and change. In meetings across the galaxy, human representatives were always polite. They worked well with others and seemed happy with their small role in galactic politics. They rarely pushed for more power or special treatment. This behavior made most aliens think humans were simple and harmless. Commander Day of the Arcturus Alliance did not share this view. He had spent years studying human history and behavior. What he found troubled him deeply. "Look at these reports," Day said one day, showing his advisors a series of images from Earth's archives. Before they reached space, they fought 2 planet-wide wars. They built weapons that could destroy their entire world. They killed millions of their own kind over land, resources, and ideas. His chief advisor, Jin, looked unimpressed. All developing species have violent pasts. The Vorelians once ate their enemies. The Tark destroyed 3 of their own colonies in civil wars. Humans seem to have moved beyond such behavior. "That's what concerns me," Dai insisted, pacing the sleek metal floor of his command center. "No species changes its nature so quickly." Their smiles hide something. Dai had risen to his position by being cautious, by seeing threats before others did. The Arcturus Alliance controlled the largest military force in the Confederation, and it was his job to identify potential dangers. He watched recordings of human representatives at council meetings. They spoke softly, deferred to older species, and offered help with medicine and agriculture. When disputes arose, they suggested talks and compromise. When other species spoke over them, they waited patiently. "Their restraint is unnatural," Da muttered to himself. The real test came when the Drakari Imperium began taking over border worlds near their territory. The Drakari were aggressive, reptilian beings who believed in strength above all else. When they seized a mineral-rich moon from the peaceful Belit people, the Confederation debated how to respond. Most military powers, including the Arcturus Alliance, sent warships to the region, but Earth only offered medical teams and diplomats. "Send your soldiers," demanded the Belit representative to the human ambassador. "You have many brave warriors on your world." "We believe this conflict can be resolved without more bloodshed," the human ambassador replied calmly. "Our medical ships are already treating your wounded." Commander Dad watched this exchange with growing suspicion. He ordered his intelligence agents to increase surveillance on human activities. "Sir, we've detected no unusual military buildup," reported his chief intelligence officer 1 week later. Their space force remained small, mostly research vessels, and a few lightly armed patrol ships. Their colony worlds are focused on agriculture and mining. But something didn't add up. Da had studied too much human history to believe they had completely abandoned their warrior ways. He remembered reading about ancient human battles, about their cunning strategies and fierce determination when cornered. Late one night, as Da reviewed reports in his private quarters, an aide brought a data crystal. "Sir, we intercepted this communication from a remote human science station." The recording showed 2 humans discussing what appeared to be harmless research, but something in their manner caught Da's attention. "Play it again," he ordered. "Translate the background conversation." In the background, almost too faint to hear, 2 other humans were speaking. The translation was troubling. The prototype worked perfectly. The energy output exceeded predictions by 40%. "Good, keep it quiet. Remember our policy. Develop but don't display." Da's suspicions deepened. He authorized a covert mission to observe a remote human colony that official records listed as an agricultural settlement. What his agents found was disturbing. Underneath fields of crops, deep scans revealed vast underground facilities. "What are they building down there?" Da demanded. "Unknown, sir. The structures are heavily shielded against scans, but power readings suggest advanced research and possibly manufacturing." Day brought his findings to the Confederation Security Council, but was met with dismissal. "The humans have been model citizens," said the Vorelian representative. "They heal our sick. They help feed poor worlds. They ask for little in return." "That's exactly my point," Day argued. "What species gives without expecting something in return? What are they waiting for?" The council meeting ended with no action taken. As Dai left, the human representative, a woman named Sun, approached him. "Commander Dai," she said with a slight bow, "I understand you have concerns about my people." Dai stiffened. "Just doing my duty, Representative Sun." "Of course," she smiled. "I only wish to say that understanding often comes from direct experience. You would be welcome to visit Earth as my personal guest. See how we live. Perhaps it would answer your questions." There was something in her eyes, not a threat, but a sadness, perhaps, that caught Dodd off guard. "I'll consider it," he replied stiffly. 3 days later, shocking news reached the Confederation capital. The Drakari had launched a surprise attack on 3 human frontier colonies, far from Earth. Reports indicated heavy civilian casualties. The Drakari, it seemed, had calculated that humans would be easy targets, weak and unwilling to fight. An emergency session of the Confederation Council was called. Representative Sun addressed the gathering, her voice calm despite the circumstances. "We request the Confederation's intervention under our membership charter," she said simply. After debate, the Council refused. The Drakari had too many trading partners among influential council members. Many secretly believed humans needed to learn to defend themselves if they wanted respect in the galaxy. Day watched Sun carefully as she received the news. He expected anger, perhaps threats. Instead, she simply nodded. "Earth understands," she said. "We will handle this matter ourselves." As she left the chamber, she passed close to Da. "That invitation to visit Earth remains open, Commander," she said quietly. "Though perhaps you should wait a few weeks." Something in her tone sent a chill through Da's body. For the first time, he wondered if his suspicions about humans hadn't gone far enough. That night, Da couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about human history, about how their wars had evolved over centuries, about how they had nearly destroyed themselves before reaching for the stars. And he thought about the Drakari, who had chosen humans as easy prey, who believed that diplomatic words meant weakness, who had never studied the long, bloody path that had led humans to embrace peace. "They're not weak," he whispered to the darkness. "They're not peaceful because they can't fight. They're peaceful because they know exactly what they're capable of." Little did the galaxy know that humanity's restraint wasn't born from weakness, but from hard-learned lessons about war's terrible cost. And now, that restraint was about to be tested by enemies who couldn't imagine what humans could become when pushed too far. The Drakari Imperium ships appeared suddenly above the human colony of New Hope. Like giant metal insects, they darkened the sky as colonists looked up in fear. The Drakari were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors with scaled skin and sharp teeth. They believed that strength was the only law that mattered. "Primitive humans," announced the Drakari commander Vex from his flagship. "Your weak colonies are now under Drakari control. Surrender and serve, or face extinction." The colony's small defense force had no chance against the massive warships. Within hours, Drakari soldiers marched through the streets. They destroyed homes, took food stores, and rounded up colonists for questioning. Similar attacks happened at 2 other human colonies, Green Valley and Horizon's Edge. All 3 were far from Earth, with small populations and few defenses. The Drakari chose these targets carefully, believing humans would be easy to defeat. "These humans are soft," laughed a Drakari captain as he watched colonists being herded into work camps. "They talk of peace and cooperation. They know nothing of real power." On New Hope, a young colony leader named Min managed to send a distress signal before the Drakari captured the communications center. The message traveled through space for 3 days before reaching Earth. When the news arrived, Earth changed overnight. Streets that had been filled with normal life suddenly buzzed with urgent activity. Emergency alarms sounded in every city. Military bases that had seemed almost forgotten sprang to life. High Representative Ju, Earth's voice in the Galactic Confederation, called for an immediate meeting with Earth's leadership in the underground command center beneath the capital. "How many dead?" she asked, her voice steady despite the grim news. "Early reports suggest around 30,000 civilians," answered Admiral Park, his face tight with controlled anger. "Mostly on New Hope, which resisted the longest. The Drakari executed anyone who fought back. And our military personnel. The colonial defense forces were overwhelmed. A few managed to escape and are hiding among the civilian population. They're sending updates when possible." Ju nodded, taking in the information without showing emotion. The Confederation must respond to this clear act of aggression. "I will address the Assembly today." Hours later, Ju stood before the Galactic Confederation Assembly. The Grand Hall held representatives from over 200 species, many watching with curious detachment as the human took the speaking position. "Honored representatives," Ju began, her small figure standing straight in simple blue clothing. "For a century, humanity has been a peaceful member of this confederation. We have shared our art, our music, our medicines. We have learned from you and contributed what we could." She paused, letting her words reach every corner of the vast chamber. 3 days ago, the Drakari Imperium launched unprovoked attacks on 3 human colonies. These were civilian settlements with minimal defenses. The attacks have resulted in the deaths of 30,000 human civilians, families, children. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Some representatives looked troubled. Others remained unmoved. Under Article 7 of our membership charter, Earth formally requests Confederation intervention against this act of aggression. The debate that followed lasted hours. The Drakari representative, a tall figure with gleaming scales, spoke with dismissive confidence. These colonies were in disputed space. The humans were warned. This is a minor border adjustment, not worth Confederation involvement. Representatives from worlds with strong trade ties to the Drakari supported this view. Others suggested a committee to study the situation. Many feared that standing against the Drakari would hurt their own economic interests. Commander Day of the Arcturus Alliance watched from his observer's position. He saw how the Confederation representatives avoided meeting Ju's steady gaze. He noticed how the humans stood perfectly still throughout the debate, never interrupting, never showing anger. When the vote finally came, the result was clear. The request for intervention was denied. "The Confederation regrets this conflict," announced the head council member, "but considers this a regional dispute to be resolved between the involved parties." Ju's expression revealed nothing of her thoughts. She simply bowed slightly. "Earth thanks the Assembly for its consideration," she said. Her voice remained as calm as when she had entered. "We will handle this matter independently." As she turned to leave, many representatives seemed relieved that the uncomfortable moment had passed so easily. They expected humans, like most minor species, to accept their fate. Only Commander Dai felt a strange tension in the air. He followed Ju into the hallway outside the assembly chamber. "Representative Ju," he called. "A moment, please." She stopped and turned. "Commander Dai, what can I do for you?" Your response was unexpected. "The Drakari are powerful. They have conquered species more advanced than humans." Ju studied him carefully. "Why does our response interest you, Commander?" "You have made your suspicions about humanity clear in the past." "Because I have studied your history," Dai admitted. "And I know that humans rarely give up so easily." For the first time, a small smile touched Ju's lips. "Perhaps you understand us better than most, Commander." She glanced back at the assembly chamber doors. "The Confederation has made its position clear. Now we will make ours clear as well." "What do you mean?" "For a century, we have shown the galaxy only one face of humanity. The Drakari have chosen to see our restraint as weakness. That is a mistake that will not serve them well." Before Dai could respond, Ju's communication device signaled. She checked it, then looked back at Dai. If you wish to understand humanity better, Commander, I suggest you pay close attention in the coming days." With that, she walked away, leaving Da with an uneasy feeling. Back on Earth, the response to the Confederation's decision was already underway. In orbit, shipyards that had been building science vessels and cargo ships suddenly revealed hidden sections. Storage facilities that appeared on no official records were opened. Engineers and military personnel who had maintained low profiles for decades moved with new purpose. In a secure command room, Admiral Park met with Earth's military leadership. "The Drakari believe we are weak," he said, looking at the grim faces around him. "They attacked our people because they thought we would not fight back. The Confederation has abandoned us because they believe the same." He pressed a button, and a holographic display showed detailed images of the Drakari fleet. "For 100 years, we have kept our promise. We entered space as a peaceful species. We buried our weapons and our warrior past. We proved we could be more than our history." The Admiral's eyes hardened. "But we never forgot what we were capable of. We never lost the knowledge. We just chose not to use it." He looked around the room. "That choice has been taken from us. Activate Protocol Defender. All reserve forces, all hidden projects, everything we've kept in reserve. It all goes active now." Across Earth and its nearby bases, lights came on in long-dormant facilities. Weapons systems that had been developed in secret were powered up. Ships with designs unlike anything seen in human space began final preparations. On the colony of New Hope, a Drakari officer noticed something strange. The human prisoners, who had seemed broken and defeated just days before, were standing straighter. Some were even smiling slightly. "Why do they look so confident?" he asked a guard. "Who knows? Maybe they're going mad," the guard replied with a shrug. That night, a tremor ran through the Drakari fleet. Many of the captains felt the same strange sensation, that something was shifting, that they had miscalculated badly, and that a storm was coming their way. They had no idea that humanity was about to show its other face to the galaxy. The orbital shipyards around Earth had always been busy places. For decades, they had built science vessels, cargo ships, and passenger liners. Now, almost overnight, they transformed into something very different. Hidden sections of the shipyards opened like flowers. Panels slid away to reveal construction bays that officially did not exist. Workers moved with urgent purpose, their faces set with determination. Admiral Taz stood at the observation window of Orbital Command, watching the activity with a mixture of pride and concern. Behind him, representatives from various Earth nations and colonies waited silently. "The first wave will launch tomorrow," he said, turning to face them. 20 warships, fully armed and ready for combat. 20, asked one of the colony representatives. "Is that enough against the Drakari fleet?" Admiral Tay's expression remained calm. "These are not ordinary vessels. They incorporate technologies we've been developing but not deploying. And they're just the beginning." News of the human military mobilization spread quickly through the Galactic Confederation. Many representatives were shocked. They had believed humans possessed only basic defense capabilities. Commander Day received the reports with grim satisfaction. He had always suspected humans were hiding their true potential. Now his suspicions were confirmed. Their orbital facilities are producing military vessels at an impossible rate, his intelligence officer reported. "Ships we've never seen before. Designs unlike anything in their official databases." "I knew it," Da muttered. "They've been concealing their military technology all along." But as more information came in, Day realized the situation was more complex than simple deception. On Earth, something remarkable was happening. Humans weren't just revealing hidden weapons, they were creating new ones at an astonishing speed. Research projects that had been theoretical suddenly became priorities. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, fueled by a sense of urgent purpose. In a research facility in what was once called North America, Dr. Jun led a team developing a new type of shield technology. 6 months ago, this was just an idea, she explained to visiting military officials. Now we have a working prototype ready for installation. How is this possible? Asked a general. We were told this technology was years away. Dr. Jun smiled slightly. That timeline assumed normal research conditions and limited resources. Now we have unlimited resources and the motivation of knowing our people are dying. It's amazing what humans can accomplish when united by necessity. This pattern repeated across Earth and its inner colonies. Technologies that had been explored only in theory became reality in days. Manufacturing facilities that normally produced everyday items switched to building components for weapons and defenses. The first wave of human warships emerged from Earth's shipyards 5 days after the Confederation denied help. They didn't look impressive by galactic standards. Their hulls were blocky and functional, lacking the sleek designs of the Arcturus Alliance or the intimidating spikes of Drakari vessels. They were smaller than the massive battleships of advanced species. Most Confederation observers were unimpressed. They saw the human response as brave but futile. Primitive vessels, remarked a Vendican military analyst. They appear to rely on ballistic weapons rather than energy-based systems. Their shield technology seems rudimentary at best. The Drakari were even more dismissive. When their intelligence services reported on the approaching human fleet, their high commander laughed. These are the ships they send to face us. They look like cargo haulers with guns attached. He displayed the images for his officers. Their design is inefficient. Their weapons are primitive. They will be easy prey. His second-in-command nodded but added a note of caution. Our intelligence suggests unusual power readings from some of the vessels. Their capabilities may exceed their appearance. Nonsense, the High Commander said. These humans have been peace lovers for a century. They don't know how to fight a real war. Meanwhile, Admiral Tai held a final briefing with his fleet commanders. The room was tense but focused as he outlined their strategy. The Drakari expect us to fight like other Confederation species, he explained. They expect energy weapons, conventional shields, and traditional space combat tactics. They've studied our official military capabilities and believe they know what we can do. He brought up detailed scans of the Drakari fleet occupying the human colonies. But they don't understand human warfare. Throughout our history, we've never fought the way our enemies expected. We've never limited ourselves to one approach. Captain Han, commander of the lead assault ship, studied the tactical display. Their shields are optimized against energy weapons. Our kinetic systems should penetrate more effectively. Exactly. Admiral Ta nodded. And they expect frontal assaults. They won't be prepared for our multi-vector approach. What about civilian casualties? Asked another captain. Our people are still on those colonies. Admiral Tay's expression grew solemn. Protecting our colonists is our highest priority. That's why the first wave consists of precision strike vessels and extraction specialists. We'll employ surgical tactics, not brute force. As the briefing concluded, Admiral Ta looked at each commander in turn. For 100 years, we've shown the galaxy that humans can be peaceful explorers and contributors. Now we must show them that peace was always our choice, not our only option. The human fleet departed Earth's orbit with little ceremony. Unlike the military vessels of other species, they didn't broadcast threatening messages or display intimidating light patterns. They simply accelerated to their maximum speed and headed toward the occupied colonies. On the way, they passed several Confederation observation posts. The alien observers noted the unusual configuration of the human ships with growing curiosity. Their design makes no sense, said a Tellarite observer. Those external modules are vulnerable to attack. The power distribution system seems inefficient. And why do some vessels have no apparent weapons at all? What the observers didn't understand was that humans had never approached warfare like other species. Throughout their bloody history on Earth, humans had learned that wars weren't won through superior firepower alone, but through innovation, adaptation, and unexpected tactics. The human ships weren't designed to look impressive or intimidating. They were designed to win. As the fleet approached the Drakari occupation zone, they split into smaller groups. Some accelerated ahead, while others dropped behind or moved to flanking positions. The formation made no sense to conventional military analysts. In his command center, Commander Dai watched the human fleet movements with growing understanding. Unlike other observers, he had studied human military history in depth. "They're not following any standard combat doctrine," he told his advisors. "They're improvising, adapting their approach specifically to counter Drakari strengths." "Is that effective?" asked the junior officer. Day nodded slowly. "Humans have a saying from their history: no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. They expect plans to change. They design for flexibility rather than perfect execution of a single strategy." As the human fleet neared the first occupied colony, the Drakari prepared for battle. They positioned their warships in standard defensive formations, confident in their superior firepower and technology. What they didn't realize was that the approaching human fleet wasn't just a collection of hastily built warships. It was the product of a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare before deliberately turning away from it, not because they couldn't fight, but because they knew all too well the cost of fighting. And now, faced with the necessity of protecting their people, humans were about to demonstrate what happened when a species evolved through countless conflicts finally unleashed its full creative potential for war. The Drakari had awakened a giant that had only appeared to be sleeping. The first sign of the human counterattack came not with explosions or direct confrontation, but with silence. On the occupied colony of New Hope, Drakari Commander Rock was in the middle of sending his daily report when his communication system suddenly went dead. He tapped the controls with growing frustration. "Get this fixed immediately," he shouted at a nearby technician. "I need to report our status to High Command." "Sir, it's not just communications," the technician replied, his scaled face showing confusion. "Several key systems are offline. Defense grids, surveillance networks, even basic power regulation." "How is this possible?" "Run a diagnostic." "I'm trying, sir, but the diagnostic tools aren't responding either." Similar scenes played out across all three occupied human colonies. Drakari systems failed one after another. Security doors locked or opened at random. Lights flickered. Weapon platforms powered down. The occupying forces found themselves increasingly blind and uncoordinated. What the Drakari didn't know was that this was the first phase of what humans called the Silent Storm. 3 days before, small unmarked ships had slipped past Drakari patrols. These vessels carried elite human teams trained in infiltration and cyber warfare. They landed in remote areas of each colony and made contact with resistance cells organized by the colonists. Captain G led one such team on New Hope. She and her 6 specialists moved through the colony's underground maintenance tunnels, carrying equipment in unmarked backpacks. The Drakari never bothered to secure these service tunnels, she whispered to her team. They didn't think humans would fight back. They reached a junction box that connected to the main Drakari command center. While 2 team members stood guard, the others quickly attached devices to key data nodes. "Uploading the package now," reported Specialist Lee, his fingers moving across a small control panel. 30 seconds to integration. The package was an advanced cyber warfare suite, technology humans had claimed to be decades from mastering. In reality, Earth had developed these capabilities years ago, but kept them hidden, knowing they would be most effective if enemies didn't know they existed. As the human fleet approached the Drakari defensive line, High Commander Vex ordered his ships to battle positions. He felt confident facing the primitive-looking human vessels. "Prepare main weapons," he ordered. "Target their lead ships first." Nothing happened. "I said prepare weapons," he repeated angrily. "Sir, weapons control is not responding," his weapons officer reported, frantically working his console. "The targeting system isn't accepting commands." Around the command deck, other officers reported similar problems. Navigation systems provided false readings. Communication between ships failed. Power fluctuated unpredictably. "What is happening?" Vex demanded. On nearly 30% of the Drakari vessels, the situation was even worse. Engines shut down completely. Life support systems switched to emergency mode. Command crews found themselves trapped in their own ships, unable to participate in the coming battle. The human fleet approached in unusual formations. Instead of the standard frontal assault the Drakari expected, the Earth ships split into multiple smaller groups, attacking from different angles simultaneously. The first shots fired weren't the energy beams common in space combat, but physical projectiles, advanced railgun rounds that moved at incredible speeds. The Drakari shields, optimized to stop energy attacks, proved less effective against these kinetic weapons. Their shields are holding against our lighter weapons, reported Captain Hand from the lead human vessel. Switching to hybrid approach. What followed confused Drakari defenders and Confederation observers alike. The human ships began using combinations of weapons in ways no other species considered viable. They fired kinetic rounds to create weak points in shields, then followed with precisely timed energy blasts to penetrate those weaknesses. Some ships used electromagnetic pulses to disrupt Drakari systems, while others deployed small, fast attack drones that slipped through defensive gaps. "This makes no tactical sense," said a Confederation military observer watching from a safe distance. "Their approach lacks the mathematical precision of proper space combat doctrine." Commander Da, also observing the battle, understood what others missed. "They're not fighting by doctrine," he explained. "They're improvising, adapting their tactics based on what works. Look how they immediately shift approach when something proves ineffective." The Drakari, trained to follow rigid battle plans, struggled to counter the unpredictable human tactics. When they adapted to defend against one type of attack, the humans simply switched to another. What most observers thought were design flaws in human ships turned out to be deliberate choices. The seemingly vulnerable external modules could be jettisoned if damaged, allowing the ships to continue fighting. Power systems that appeared inefficient actually provided redundancy, letting vessels function even after taking serious hits. Some ships that seemed to have no weapons were actually carriers for smaller craft or specialized in electronic warfare. On New Hope, Captain G's team made contact with the human prisoners in work camps. They distributed small devices that allowed the colonists to communicate securely. "When you hear the signal," G told the colony leaders, "get everyone to the designated safe areas. Don't stop for anything." 3 days into the battle, human dropships descended through gaps in the Drakari defenses. They landed not to attack the occupying forces directly, but to evacuate civilians from predetermined gathering points. The Drakari found themselves unable to stop these operations as their sensors malfunctioned and their ground forces received contradictory orders. In space, the battle continued to go badly for the Drakari. Their ships, unable to coordinate effectively, were defeated one by one. Some were disabled rather than destroyed, with human forces focusing on weapons and propulsion systems while avoiding crew quarters when possible. By the 10th day, most Drakari ships had been neutralized. The ground forces on the colonies, cut off from support and supplies, found themselves surrounded by human troops who seemed to appear from nowhere. On the 14th day, Admiral Ta sent a message to the remaining Drakari forces. "Your fleet has been defeated. Your supply lines are cut. Your command structure is compromised. We offer you this choice. Surrender now, and we will ensure your people return home safely. Continue fighting, and we will be forced to take more permanent measures." The message was accompanied by detailed footage showing exactly how thoroughly the Drakari forces had been beaten. High Commander Vex, watching from his damaged flagship, realized how completely he had underestimated humans. What he had dismissed as a weak, peace-loving species had systematically dismantled his forces using technologies and tactics he'd never anticipated. "They could have destroyed us completely," he said quietly to his officers. "They chose not to." This realization was perhaps the most shocking of all. The humans had shown not just unexpected strength, but unexpected restraint. 2 days later, representatives from Earth and the Dracari Imperium met aboard a neutral Confederation vessel. Commander Day was present as an observer. "Our terms are simple," said Admiral Tai, facing the Dracari delegation across a plain table. "Withdraw all forces from our colonies. Return all human prisoners. Provide reparations for civilian deaths and property damage." "And if we refuse?" asked the senior Dracari representative. "Then we continue until your forces are completely removed," Admiral Tai replied calmly. "But we would prefer peace." The Dracari delegates exchanged glances, clearly surprised by the moderate demands. Many expected humans to push for territorial concessions or military limitations after such a decisive victory. "Why do you not demand more?" one Dracari finally asked. "You have the advantage." Admiral Tai's expression remained neutral. "We fought because we had to, not because we wanted to." Humans learned long ago that excessive demands after victory only lead to future conflicts. As the meeting concluded, Commander Day approached Admiral Tai. "You could have pressed your advantage," Day observed. "The Dracari were at your mercy." "That was never our goal," Tai replied. "We only wanted to protect our people and show that we cannot be attacked without consequence." Day studied the human carefully. "Your species is full of contradictions, Admiral. You hide your military capabilities, yet fight with remarkable effectiveness. You show great strength, then exercise unusual restraint." Admiral Ta smiled slightly. "Perhaps now the galaxy will understand. Our peace was always a choice, not a limitation." The silent storm, as the conflict came to be known, lasted just 14 days. But its impact on galactic politics would be felt for generations to come. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with excited whispers. Representatives from hundreds of species filled every seat. Many stood along the walls, unwilling to miss this historic session. Just weeks earlier, most had dismissed humans as a minor, unimportant species. Now, every eye in the hall watched the small human figure walking to the central podium. High Representative Ju moved with the same calm grace she had shown when the Confederation had denied Earth's request for help. But now, the Assembly regarded her with newfound respect, tinged with fear. The head council member, a tall being with silvery skin, activated the formal speaking protocols. "This emergency session will address recent events concerning Earth and the Dracari Imperium. High Representative Ju will speak first." Ju looked around the vast chamber, making eye contact with delegates from many worlds. Some shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice clear and measured. "When I stood before you 3 weeks ago, I asked for your help protecting human colonies under attack. You declined. Today, I return not to criticize that decision, but to explain what has happened since." The room fell completely silent as she continued. "For those who have not received full reports, the conflict has ended. All 3 human colonies have been liberated. The Dracari occupation forces have been removed. We have signed a peace agreement that includes the return of all prisoners and reparations for damage caused." She paused as murmurs spread through the hall. Many delegates looked shocked at how quickly the situation had resolved. "We did not wish to demonstrate our capacity for warfare," Ju continued. "For centuries on our homeworld, and for decades among the stars, humans have worked to move beyond our violent past. We have spent generations learning that violence begets violence. But make no mistake, we will defend our people." Her voice remained gentle, but her words carried unmistakable strength. "Humanity seeks partnership, not dominance. We hope this unfortunate conflict has clarified that peace is always our preference, but never our only option." The Dracari representative, looking considerably less confident than during the previous session, rose to speak next. "The Imperium acknowledges the surprising effectiveness of human military response," he said stiffly. "We have honored our agreement and withdrawn from the disputed territories. The conflict is resolved." What he didn't mention was how thoroughly the humans had defeated forces that should have been far superior, how they had somehow known exactly where to strike, how to disable rather than destroy when possible, and how to extract their people with minimal additional casualties. After the formal statements, many representatives approached Ju with new trade offers, military alliance proposals, and diplomatic overtures. Those who had dismissed humanity now sought closer ties. Others who had seen humans as easy targets now treated them with careful respect. Commander De watched from a distance, observing the sudden change in how the galaxy viewed humans. When the formal session ended, he found Ju in a quiet side chamber. "Quite a difference from your last appearance here," he noted. Ju smiled slightly. "Yes, amazing how defeating a military force changes diplomatic standing. I recommend the Confederation formally recognize Earth's new status and integrate humans more deeply into security and diplomatic initiatives. Not because we fear them, but because their perspective offers something unique to our collective future." The report caused lengthy debates within the Council. Some members argued that humans should be contained or carefully monitored. Others suggested they should be courted as valuable allies. On Earth, life continued. The shipyards that had produced warships returned to building exploration vessels and trade ships, though now with more obvious defensive capabilities. Research facilities focused again on medical advances, sustainable energy, and faster travel methods. When asked by a local reporter if Earth would maintain its larger military now, High Representative Ju smiled. "We never stopped being what we are," she said. "We just showed a different aspect of it when necessary. Humans have always contained both creation and destruction, peace and war, gentleness and ferocity. The galaxy now understands that our choice of peace was never our only option, just our best one." As the first anniversary of the conflict approached, Commander De stood on a hilltop overlooking the human city. Lights twinkled below as night fell. Children played in parks. People moved about their normal lives. He thought about how completely he had misunderstood humans at first. He had seen their peaceful nature as a deception hiding their warrior capabilities. Now he understood the deeper truth. Humans hadn't been hiding their strength. They had been transcending it, choosing a different path while keeping the ability to defend that choice if necessary. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity's true power wasn't in hidden weapons or secret technologies. It was in their capacity to be both fierce and gentle, both warriors and healers, both independent and connected, and in their wisdom to choose which face to show the universe.